one, the Tumnus. So.
Oh yeah, I've got that soul food here, don't I?
Yep.
Somewhere around here. But I don't know. It'll be good. You been playing much?
Had a show New Year's Eve, acoustic show.
That's different.
Yeah, it was good. We'll talk about it here in a bit.
Okay. It leads into a topic, huh?
It's a topic.
Okay. Let's get this thing rolling.
Hey guys, before we start this episode, we're starting off the new year right. We've got some merch. There's links down below. You guys can check it out. Or if you don't want to, don't check it out.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
All right, let's get back to that episode.
See ya.
Hey guys, welcome to Tone Bros. My name's Casey.
I'm Colin. We're going to get started with our current topic of the day, which is really all about reviewing Pedalmas.
Right, taking a little recap of Pedalmas and how this year went.
Yep.
After having it happen, and we've had a little bit of time to kind of mess with them, what our thoughts are. So, you want to go ahead and start with what your thoughts were on the whole thing?
Yeah.
What you expected, what you got?
So the Zeo is not what I expected at all.
Yeah.
Like I said, I thought we would go down like a blues driver or maybe even like a tube driver. Kind of like Eric Johnson's BK Butler tube driver. Did not expect the Zeo. That was cool. At first I was like, this is a bummer. But then I started playing with it and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool actually. I like the idea of having all the different options there, but I think really the star of the show was that tone switch.
Yeah.
That really makes a huge difference. I still gotta mess with it. I think it might eventually go on my small board, but time will tell. We'll figure it out.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
And until you take it out in the heat of battle on a few gigs,
Right.
It's always hard to tell with a new pedal what you're gonna do. So that's what I plan on doing with that MD200 here soon. I've got it on my small board, and I dropped off my EQ. It's actually here. Oh, it was so hard to pull it off there. But it's the one that made sense to pull off my board to put the MD200 on.
I think so.
And when I first saw it and like opened it up, I was just like, I was surprised. I thought you might go down the modulation route a little bit. I think even in the video I was like, oh, probably modulation or delay.
Yeah.
I think I led towards delay in my head a little bit more. But I didn't expect MD200, even with modulation in my head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. I figured out some presets. I got rid of your awful presets.
Come on, they weren't that bad.
They weren't that bad. But we got rid of those presets. I actually factory reset it and done the whole thing.
Okay.
So that way, anything that anyone else would have tweaked on it started fresh.
Gotcha.
And I could start from ground zero. Yeah. I got in 4 presets, and then on the manual mode, I've got it set up where I can just throw on like a quick little chorus. Because I think most of the settings that are on there, most of the pedal sounds that are on there, you have to really kind of like tweak and get the parameters right on those bottom 3 knobs. You have to get them just right. Otherwise, the sound's really off by quite a bit. Because they're pretty interactive.
Okay.
But with the chorus, I was able to basically throw everything almost at noon. And it was like the perfect chorus sound.
Okay.
So I was like, well, for manual mode, I should just throw it on chorus, because then I could throw everything practically at noon, and I'm in good shape.
Yeah.
Using the CE1 chorus, I think, though.
Okay.
So, but anyway, got that all set up. Man, it got me thinking so much about next year's Pedalmas. Yeah. Like I'm already it sounds crazy, but I'm already in the race for next year's Pedalmas.
Yeah, I've already thought about like what style I'm looking for next year. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got it nailed down between 2 styles of pedals.
Okay.
Those ring modulators are great, aren't they?
I will not accept that gift.
I got you a very special gift.
But I've got the styles nailed down, and even like pedals. I've kind of got a few pedals on each style that I'm really looking at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a really good one. I think that MD200 is going to live on one of my boards, at least as like a grab and go for quite a while, unless, you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
And it's kind of a bag of, you got a bag of tricks there you can pull out at any moment.
Uh-huh.
I do think that there is your initial thought of being able to pull up quick sounds really fast. If they're not programmed in there, and you don't know exactly what those bottom knobs do.
It's not as easy as I thought.
It's not as easy as you thought.
Okay.
Those bottom parameters, like if you turn it to a certain thing, sometimes they do wild stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just normal. But some of them are very easy to set, like chorus. But then, boy, some of them, man,
Yeah.
To get the right sound, you got to really tweak those
The
bottom.
tremolo was the hardest for me. I don't know why.
Tremolo, I honestly thought the flanger was kind of hard to set up.
Huh.
The flanger, it had just like some weird overtones and stuff in it until you got it just right. Not that it was a bad sound, it was a good sound, and there were usable sounds that were not, but just the flanger I was looking for.
Sure.
Felt like it was kind of hard to set up at first, but it's all set up with presets now. I've got, the 4 presets and the one other one. I think it's gonna be great. My main topic is talking about, do we hear tone different?
Okay.
So whenever I see something that's blue, are you seeing the same blue as I see? Probably not, right? Like, we all see things a little bit different.
See, he gets all on a tangent,
Yeah.
and then I have trouble listening. All right. What are you talking about blue for?
Okay. What I'm saying is that the same way we probably don't see things the same way, we probably don't hear things the exact same way.
Okay.
When I hear the sound of a tweet, I hear it a certain way. Are you hearing it the same way as I do? Because it feels like some people talk about guitar tone, and when they're explaining the tone of something, I'm like, it doesn't sound anything like that. Like, are they crazy? And then other times, I get with somebody that has a similar, that might have similar gear to me, and I'll talk to them, and we kind of can bond on the fact that, yeah, we hear things in kind of a similar fashion. We both kind of like this, and this works out well for us. Are we really just hearing things a little bit different? How many versions of a Tube Screamer is out there that you need?
Right.
Is everybody hearing all those versions the same? Or is everybody modding that because they're hearing like a little different thing they want to have a Tube Screamer?
I don't think so. Here's my.
Just our ear canals and everything are different, right? And to get into like physical things, our ear canals are all built differently. The room that you're in is going to all be different. Like, are we hearing these things different?
I think so. Yeah. There's some physical aspects that are going to change person to person, but I think regardless. Okay, let's say you go from a Mesa dual rectifier to a Fender Deluxe, right? Regardless, on your ear spectrum, those are going to sound completely different.
Yeah.
Right? So your ear attunes itself to those types of tones over time regardless. Right?
Yep.
So, people talk about like transparent, all these like cliche words when they're describing pedals. You go to the gear page, everyone says, this is transparent, or this is real mid-rangey, this is Tube Screamer like. I think people are just used to what they've tuned their ear to, and their preference is different. So, like, for instance, I'm not a big low mid guy. I had a Bogner Alchemist for a while, and that whole low mid thing that Bogner does is just not my thing. I personally think that a Bogner Ecstasy almost sounds too perfect.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, and to other people, that's the tone they're searching for. Like, I think there's a different tonal preference, but we don't necessarily hear tone different because we tune our ears to what we hear anyways. This is getting real out there. But like, I feel like regardless, you hear tones how you've always heard them. So when people describe it with an adjective, like it sounds clear, it sounds bitey, like that's bitey in response to all those other things they've heard before. But they might have a different preference than you. Like, I'm not a dual rectifier fan, but maybe someone prefers those tones over that deluxe reverb, which is not my preference. But I think our adjectives to describe those things might be the same.
Yeah, and then do you think that people get down rabbit holes? Like, there's the whole SRV thing, and like everybody's into playing these big high-powered Fenders and stuff with Tube Screamers, and they get into this rabbit hole where they can really hear the difference in like a little Tube Screamer variant. Like, those people are very dialed into that thing, or John Mayer.
I think everyone hyper focuses on what they think is important. Like me, the tweed thing's important. I've played the Mesa Boogie Cali or whatever, and it's supposed to be tweed-esque. I honestly don't hear much tweed tones out of it.
And
like,
then, like I listen to heavy gain stuff and like really like high gain stuff, like Mesas and 5150s and all this different stuff. And like everybody talks about, yeah, the block logo 5150 sounds so much different than the signature logo 5150. Well, they put different tubes in the block logo. We found all this stuff out later. And there was a little difference in tubes, but whenever you listen to them, especially in a mix, like good luck hearing them. But the people that are really into that, they can hear that difference for sure. Where
Again,
maybe I'm not going to catch it.
I think it's whatever your preference is and how like important it is to you. Like you dig into, like you said, all those tube screamers. Well, if you're not a tube screamer guy, you don't care anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like
true.
you're only gonna focus on the things you care about. So I don't think we hear tone different. I think we just prefer things differently.
Why do people sometimes think they've got really good tone and their tone sucks? If we don't hear things different. Because sometimes I listen to people and they're real excited.
Again, it's a preference. It's not they hear tones different. I think it's they prefer, okay, don't come at me, but a lot of people think that Randy Rhoads' tone's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
I think for what he done, though,
No.
for what he done,
Don't try to.
don't try to justify.
Don't try to justify horrible tone on this show.
Look, guys, don't even try it, okay?
Randy Rhoads, he had a specific tone. No one had something like that before. Hold your comments. There is a reason why that made a different type of music.
There's a reason why no one ever got that tone again. Yeah, I get what you're saying. There's also the fact, too, that people will hear two things side by side that are definitely different. And I can hear differences drastically. They're like, oh, it sounds the same. Like, how is he hearing that as the same? Like, it's clearly way different, but maybe that's that preference thing again.
Also, it can be as simple as I'm staying in front of the cab, you're staying to the side. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's so many factors.
It's interesting.
I think it's all preference.
Yeah. I don't think it's all preference because some people have got horrible tone and they can't seem to hear it.
But that's what they prefer.
Yeah. Speaking of Randy Rhoads, man, he was such a good player. And there were so many good amps at that time.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it did stick out, and when you heard it, you knew it was him. That's good.
I'm saying the Marshall, I'm sure, was fantastic.
Yeah.
Had to be that Distortion Plus, right?
It had to be. Well, a lot of people use Distortion Pluses in the Marshalls, and I like the sound.
Maybe you had that tone all the way up on that. Wait, there was only 2 knobs, right? On the Distortion
Plus, yeah. I don't know what it was, but that tone is something special. All right, let's go ahead and move into your gas or pass. We can talk about that all day.
Yeah, so we're going to start gas or pass here with one that we slept on. It was an amp that we should have bought. We've played it before. It was the Marshall JTM1, so they made a head and a combo. I'm talking about the head because we played that and we were blown away with 1 watt. That thing sounded amazing.
Yeah, it was the anniversary model. I don't remember what year it was. 40th anniversary?
I want to say 60th, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember either. But it was the anniversary model. It was a 10 anniversary model. And yeah, we played it into a 112 cab too, right? Oh my gosh. We thought we were losing our minds that day because we played so many things that were good.
We played 3 really good amps. So we played a Dr. Z no, not a Maserati. We played a PV Penta.
Which, if you're looking for a sleeper amp,
a cheap amp,
man,
that's a great one.
They're not out there a lot, but they had like a little mode switch. You could flip through like 5 different modes.
Yeah, it was great.
Really cool.
And then we played that Marshall JTM1, and we're like, this sounds great too. So we were like, maybe we're just crazy.
And that day, we played a bunch of that stuff through a Les Paul Studio. It was black.
Yeah, and the Les Paul Studio wasn't half bad.
And I remember thinking, this is maybe the best Les Paul Studio I've ever played.
We were, sorry, I got a little cold here, so I'm trying to figure out how to laugh but not laugh at the same time.
He's got the plague, folks. He's had it for a little while, and I don't think it's going anywhere.
It's been like a week and a half, and I just cannot shake it.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was one of those things where everything we plugged into sounded good. So we're like, maybe we're just way off base today.
We were scared to buy anything that day because we honestly, everything we touched, we're like, oh, that's great. That's great. That's great.
It was weird.
You imagine if we would have walked out there with a guitar and 3 amps, a half stack, a combo, because a Maserati was a 112 combo.
I'm telling you right now, though, those are some great amps, and that was a great guitar.
Yeah.
We honestly should have left.
We should have left there with all of that stuff.
I don't know about all of it, but we should have left there with most of it.
2 amps and a guitar,
okay,
for sure.
Gas or pass?
Oh, okay.
Marshall JTM1. It's honestly, you can find them used for about $1,000.
Yeah, sometimes I've seen them go up as high as like $1,500. But I have seen them for the $1,000, $1,100 range.
Right.
At that price, honestly, it's a big gas for me.
Yeah.
I would love to have that. I know there's the studio heads now they've got, and everybody gets excited for those, and they're great heads.
Yeah, especially because you can flip it down to 5 watts, and they're super user-friendly.
Did that Marshall 1 watt, did it have a 0.1 switch too? Could you go 0.1 to 1?
It's been so long, I couldn't tell you. I want to think there was, but I'm not sure.
I think there might have been. And yeah, the studios are great because you can knock down the wattage and stuff. That's cool. But there was something so cool about that 1 watt head.
Yeah.
Throw it on a 112 cap, and you really could gig that thing anywhere.
Yeah, it was great.
But it was loud.
Uh-huh.
You could keep up with a quiet drummer.
Yeah.
You know? And, man, so cool. It's a complete gas for me. I would love to see them do those little 1 watt heads again, which I guess they kind of did with the studio.
No, that's a 5 watt.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's similar.
Yeah.
It's similar.
Similar, but yeah, I think the 1 watt's a good idea.
Yeah, I think for me, since I've got this big Marshall, I would prefer to have the 1 watt head.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Is it a gas?
Complete gas. It was one of those amps where I plugged in and I was like, no, there's no way it sounds this good. Like, I'm crazy.
So that whenever we played that, they had the JTM, they had the JMP version, if you remember.
And then I think a JTM800.
They had a JTM800, and then they had it was like
DSL?
a DSL version of it. Yeah, they had all 4 of the heads there. We played in all of them, and the JMP one was good. It had 3 knobs on it.
Yeah, it was good, but it was a little bright.
It was, I think maybe it was just aggressive or something. There was something about it that we were like, oh, it's good.
Yeah.
But this JTM is where it's at.
Oh, it was amazing.
Anyway, complete gas for me.
Yep.
But yeah, if you can find one out there for $1,000, it's hard to beat. I know it's only 1 watt, but that 1 watt will do a lot.
I mean, it does a lot. It's a great bedroom amp. It's a great low watt gigging amp.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of uses for it, but it to me, it just was amazing for also the price point at the time. We should have bought it because I'm pretty sure
it was
when they were $600, $700.
Yeah, I was gonna say $700. I mean, it's possible they were $799. I got a feeling they were $699 when they came out. So they were $700, and that's why you're thinking $6.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking $7. I think it was $699.
Okay.
But it was right around that price range. $1,000 though, $1,100.
It's still not bad.
I'm not gonna blink at that. That thing came out like 15 years ago or something.
It was like 10, probably.
But it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go ahead and move into my gas or pass.
Okay.
So this gas or pass is something that I saw, and it made me think about you because you're a tweed lover.
I am.
And you are trying to make this tweed work in all these different gigs, and a lot of times that does work. But a few times it kind of doesn't really work out that well.
Right.
You got this Pod Express for a backup rig.
Uh-huh.
And it's awesome because it'll kind of cover your pedal board and your amp and everything.
Yep.
But did you see this new Origin, fairly newish, Origin Effects 55, this tweed pedal?
Yeah.
Holy cow, it sounds amazing in the demos that we heard.
Right.
We all know, though, demos suck. However, it seems like it would be a good replacement or a backup, or like you get to a gig and the amp just isn't going to work for you.
Right.
What's your thoughts? It's like $339.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but it's Origin. They're doing it right. It's only 1 amp in this one pedal.
Right.
But boy, it sounds like it was pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know. I go back and forth on this stuff. Because you're right. I got the Pod Express. I got this tweed. Do I need this pedal? No. Does it sound fantastic? Yes. Is it something I'd like to go to all the time? No. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm so hit or miss on this. Like, as far as not being able to turn my tweet up, because there are a lot of times where my tweet is at literally 1.5, and it is not opening up till about 2.
That sounds crazy to a lot of people if you haven't played a tweet amp. But
all the volumes up front
all the volume is probably between like 0 and like 2.5, you think?
to 3.
2.5 to 3? Yeah, all the volume comes there, and then after that, it's just gain, basically.
Yeah, and
And you want it like 2 to 2.5, 3 at the most is
2
where
to
you want
3
it.
is its sweet spot.
Yeah.
Because 2, it's opened up enough, and 3, you're starting to get some hair on the note, and then after that, you're right, it kind of goes.
It gets farty and like doesn't work
does
out
the
as
tweed
well.
thing.
Yeah, but
see, you have a face like that's disgusting. I love the tweed thing. I like the idea of a speaker just falling in on itself. You know what I mean? But anyways, this whole thing with the origin effects, it would be cool. Again, kind of like a backup, like a Pod Express, but I just don't want to commit. I have commitment issues.
yeah.
What can I say?
So I'm not saying you commit to it, but what if you use that for your backup instead of the Pod Express? Or you had that as like a secondary option? Because that Pod Express has got like a tweed-ish kind of version in there, right?
Well, not in the initial settings. No, it's Princeton. Then it's like I want to say a Dumble or an Overdrive Special.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes to Vox, so it kind of bypasses the whole
Okay.
tweed thing.
The IR2 has a tweed in there.
It does.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't even have a tweed option. So the amp
You can load it in there.
The amp that you love the most and use on most of your gigs isn't even in your backup option.
Not the backup pedal, no.
Man.
It's a backup.
What do you guys think about that?
Here's the thing. He might have the money to be able to afford that stuff.
I've got an IR2 for a backup.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're talking about getting another thing for something I already have. It's one of those things where, like, I've already got the Pod Express. It does a job.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else.
Yeah, you've got guitars. You don't need anything else. Right?
Don't show this video to my wife.
My point is, like, yeah, of course you don't need this. You don't need it. But I was just wondering, the whole point of the segment is gas or pass. Does it give you gas, gear acquisition syndrome, to think that, man, I would really like to have that because that would work out really well in my scenario if I show up and the tweed's not working, the tweed goes down, whatever's happening, I could have the most, I'm not saying it's the most, but I'm saying it's really good from the sounds you can hear. Most accurate version of a tweed that I've, looked into.
I will say that I think I would like the idea of this more than, if UA Effects would come out with something. Don't they have something like the Woodrow?
Yeah, they do.
The Woodrow. And I've not been impressed by that.
Yeah, whenever I listen to it, we already talked about how demos suck on here. We're not going to go back into that. But demos do suck, and you never know what to believe. But from what I heard on demos, the Woodrow did not impress me that much. But when I listened to this Origin, it did.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm going to stick to my guns and say pass because I don't need it because I'd rather have a Princeton right now.
He's lying to himself, folks. He's lying to himself. For me, it's a pass because I'm not interested.
He's a good salesman, but not that good.
Yeah, I'm not a big tweed guy in the first place. I do enjoy their sound, and I enjoy playing them, but for like my go-to sound, it's just not it. And it would have to be your go-to sound. That's what it comes down to. It is your go-to sound most of the time. So that's kind of why I brought it up, is I thought it might be something that you'd be interested in.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on to your main topic.
So my main topic is really talking about the difference between when you're at a gig for an acoustic show and an electric show. Because here recently I did another acoustic show and it finally hit me like a ton of bricks. Wow, this is like very drastically different. How do I go from electric gigs to acoustic gigs? And what's my overall like goal as far as my tone? Obviously that's going to change person to person. But like, what are you trying to get out of your rig when you go for an acoustic show and an electric show?
Okay, yeah, that's a great topic to bring up. So, well, let's start with your experience that you had.
Yeah.
So you went from your normal electric rig to your acoustic rig. What did you shoot for? What were you shooting for? Did you accomplish it? What did it look like?
Yeah. So, for the electric, I mean, it's pretty simple. I have 1 amp and I got a small pedal board that I try to use. Depending on the gig size, I might use a bigger board. And just kind of this band, it's more of like a top 40 type thing.
And you're like a 4 or 5 piece band, something like
Yeah.
that? Yeah. And you've got kind of a small spectrum you're trying to stay in to some degree because you do have another guitar player occasionally, off and on.
Right. So I don't have to cover like a huge span of tones. So I try to use a small board. I use a Tweed, sometimes a Vox AC15 head and cab. Really, what it comes down to is, I've got a couple modulation effects, mostly tremolo, some vibe, stuff like that, rotary sounds. And then, other than that, it's slapback, long delays, overdrive.
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to cover a huge amount of territory. I'm just trying to add some textures, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, as far as electric, I feel like my goal is to hold down the fort during, the verse and the chorus. And then as far as solo stuff, I can kind of go out on a tangent and then come back.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like I've totally left the band.
Yeah.
When you play an acoustic, you kind of got to hold down the fort the entire time.
Right.
I mean, there's not really an option to go in left field and come back.
So when you were playing this acoustic gig, were you the only acoustic player?
No, there was another acoustic guitar. So I would play just a little bit of lead, but mostly it's chord-based structure. So I couldn't really, obviously, I'm not going to play slide. I'm not going to have a whole lot of modulation.
Yeah.
It comes down to bare bones with an acoustic. My slide is my effect. Other than that, it's just reverb.
Yeah.
I don't like having a chorus on an acoustic, me personally. That's just how I kind of handle that. And then I plug into a preamp, Fishman preamp, and then go to the mains. Yeah. So it's not like and I play a GS Mini because, I mean, when it comes down to acoustic pickups, they're all pretty terrible. So I have a GS Mini and I plug in that Fishman preamp and it sounds just as good as about any acoustic guitar.
Right.
And it's low hassle. I love it. It's really simplistic. And it's just like bare bones, gets me to what I need to, and that's pretty much it.
It's a low barrier of entry too. If something happened and your GS Mini got ran over, you could go grab another one at the store and not have to worry about it.
Right.
It's kind of like me taking my deluxe reverb all over the place. It's a reissue. If it fell out of the back of a truck somewhere, I could go grab another one at the store and pretty much be back in business.
Right.
And the GS Mini is so, like, size-wise, it's easy to haul around.
Oh, it's great.
It's a perfect setup for that. So that completely makes sense for that. Yeah, and when I think of, like, tones going from acoustic to electric, like, I think of electric, you're generally with a bigger band. It's never just you and a singer. So you have to be a little more narrowed in your tones.
Yep.
You got to be in the mids a little bit more. You don't want to cover any frequencies of bass or the kick drum's going to be kicking. You don't want to be super high where if you've got keyboards, you've got high vocalists or anything, you're getting in their way. Even cymbals, which you're not going to get in their way really. And then when I go in acoustic, especially if it's just me, but even with another player, I'm thinking about wide frequency.
Yeah,
range.
you want to be as wide as you can to fill that space.
Yeah, within reason,
Yeah.
right? I don't mind chorus on an acoustic for like a certain like a song or a type of song once in a great while. But I would have to be playing that music to put a chorus pedal on a board for an acoustic. I wouldn't naturally put one on there.
Yeah.
Some type of preamp is huge because you're going to want to notch some like mid-range or like some odd filtering out. You're going to want to filter it. But yeah, I think about just getting super wide and yeah, you're not going to sound like an acoustic guitar.
No.
You're just not going to sound like one.
Nope.
So you got to give that up and you've got to just concede to the fact of everybody when they hear an acoustic guitar in a live gig, they're used to hearing that like under the saddle pickup sound. No matter if you've got mics in your guitars or whatever, that's great. But everyone's used to hearing that under the saddle sound. And they, in their brain now, when they hear live guitar, acoustic guitar, that's what they think of.
Yeah, that's the sound now.
So yeah, that's how I think about approaching it, is I think about going from a narrow like tone and like EQ structure to a really wide EQ structure.
Yeah, and I also think this is interesting. When you go to an electric gig, I'm more likely to switch guitars.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you have different pickups and stuff like that, that makes a huge difference. But with an acoustic, I don't really feel the need to change guitars at all.
No, not unless you've got some crazy tuning. Like you got to switch to DADGAD
Or
something.
a 12 string or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I probably would just not play the 12 string. I'd probably play a 6 string.
Yeah.
Unless it's some big commercial gig and I'm getting paid enough money to haul a 12 string guitar too.
Well, yeah.
But that's a different thing. I think about getting a solid, wide acoustic sound, a little bit of reverb. But electric, yeah, I've got to think narrow. I've got to think about all these like textures and stuff. And I'm not really doing so much texture stuff on the acoustic.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing by yourself with a singer or something. And I love the acoustic thing though. It's fun.
It is fun. And it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm getting back to the bare bones of things, you know?
Yeah. Now with 2 acoustic players, did you think about narrowing your frequency range down some? Were you guys fighting each other at all? Because it's not like 2 electric players where you have different amps. You guys both have acoustic guitars with, acoustic guitar pickups.
He plugs straight into the mains. So he had kind of a mid-range sound because he plugged straight into the mains.
Yeah.
With my preamp, I could take the wide spectrum, which was kind of funny because I had this little GS Mini with a wide sound. But, that's what worked.
It just goes to show you that like it's all about having the right equipment. It's not necessarily about, what always looks the part. Sometimes just having the right piece. And that Fishman preamp for what you're using is exactly what you needed.
Right.
Widens everything. It's great. Anyway, be curious what you guys think about this stuff. Put it down below. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.